Hey guys, welcome back to My Inner Anchor. My name's Lee Graham. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you for tuning in so far. Thank you to everyone who's been really positive, and I've had a lot of nice messages since starting this podcast. So I'm hoping that this reaches whoever needs it today. And today we're stepping into a conversation that personally I feel is needed quite a lot at the moment. Before we begin, I want to say a bit of a caveat. Just make something clear. This episode, which is titled Masculinity, Vulnerability and Being Human, isn't about excluding women or any other genders, however you identify yourself. I fully respect anyone who, as human beings. It's not about elevating men's needs above anyone else's. It's about supporting men so they can show up in healthier, kinder, more grounded ways for the people that they love of all genders. Because how you show up affects everyone. How men show up affects every single person in their lives, no matter what gender they are. And how any other gender shows up will showcase to and impact everyone in their lives. There's been a lot in recent TV shows and media about certain things that there's a lot of online noise, there's a lot of media noise around masculinity, and men are being pulled in 100 different directions. The extremes, the shouting, the posing, and in the middle of all of that there's a lot of men who are quietly struggling, not because they're weak, but because they've never been given a healthy space to understand themselves, understand their feelings, understand what's going through their minds. And I hope this episode and the next couple are all that space. Like I say, there's a lot going on out there, and there is another option. There is another way to look at things. There is a space where masculinity isn't about dominance or detachment or ego. There is a space where you can love boxing, football, gym, lifting, competing, what any of those masculine side of things may be, and still be kind, still be mindful, still be emotionally aware and deeply human. And when I say masculinity, that doesn't define just to men. There are people of all genders, of course, who feel like they align with that side of things. You know, they align with heavy training and boxing and all those kind of things. And, you know, masculinity isn't exclusive to men. And I think that's important to mention as well. Because in the same way that I personally believe that all genders have masculinity and femininity within them, and we are a sliding Richter scale on both of those counts. It's not specific to your gender. That's very different from an emotion, and we will have feminine emotions and masculinity emotions, and we will all align on that, like I say, that sliding rule kind of scale with others in a very different way. Because being someone myself who loves, you know, heavy training, and as well as everything else that goes on in my life, you know, it's the things aren't opposite. I love of sport and competing and football and lifting and heavy gym and things that we all love doing. Doesn't mean you have to listen to the online noise and rubbish that's going around and not be kind, not be mindful, not be emotionally aware. Then these things are not opposites. They're not contradictions. They're not mutually exclusive. They're part of us all as a human being. And I think it's time we all reclaimed a type of masculinity that is grounded. Like I say, this is not the version that's trending online, not the version that's being shouted at young men by idiots trying to sell their brand, not the version that's been twisted into extremes of dominance, detachment, and emotional shutdown. I'm talking about the masculinity that exists in real people. Those who work hard, those who show up, those who love deeply, those who carry more than they ever say out loud. Right now, the manosphere is quite loud. It's become a bit of a hot topic. There's been some great documentaries released showcasing how ridiculous the notion of it all is. As we all know, those who talk loudest often have the least to say. And there's a lot of talk about how a man should be, how they should act, how they should feel, and what they should suppress. But here's the truth. You can be masculine and grounded. You can be masculine and kind. You can be masculine and emotionally aware. You can love, like all those things I said, boxing, football, lifting, competition, drinking, and still be mindful, respectful, centered, and connected. And this is what I want to talk about today. I think it's important for everyone that this notion that is going out, that masculinity is toxic, is wrong. It's not. The clue in the phrase toxic masculinity is the word toxic. Of course there's a toxic side. There's a toxic side to every emotion, every way that you show up. But it does not mean that the emotion itself isn't valid. And of course, the toxic side should absolutely be called out, because that is not acceptable behaviour in anyone. Mistreating anyone, stepping over people, pulling others down, and affecting anyone's mental health in any way, whether it's coercive behaviour, just generally being downtrodden, being sexist, racist, misogynistic, homophobic. None of these things are true. None of these things make you masculine. They make you an idiot. They make you disconnected, and disconnection is dangerous. And I think in a world right now where we're all feeling so disconnected maybe from what's going on in society with those around us, it's a very, very, very dangerous place to be. And when people don't have that human connection and they don't see others with the same respect, the same value that they may all like owe themselves, they don't see that equality, that can lead to some very, very sad times. And no one wants that. No one with any kind of respect wants those. So this episode is about how you can be both things. And there is another option. And just because these influencers on socials say that this is a man must be, doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean in any way that there's only one option. There's always another option. And the other option is what's right for you. And finding what's right for you. Now, anything I say over the course of this episode is only based on my own experiences. In fact, anything I say on any episode is only based on my own experiences, my own feelings, my own beliefs. So this is not a yes and no answer once again. It is purely my experiences, my feelings, and how I believe. And what I believe in, I should say. So I thank you for joining me on this episode. And if anybody would like to give me their opinions, then they're more than welcome to. Leave comments, drop me a message on the socials. I respect everyone's opinion. So first of all, I want to talk about, my experience with masculinity. I think it's fair to say from conversations I've had with some friends, and a lot of good friends as well, that still, even in my generation, I'm 38 years old, born late 80s, grew up in the 90s, early 2000s. There's still a unspoken rule of being men. Don't cry, don't show weakness, don't ask for help, don't talk to others about what's going on inside. Get on with it. Strength was silence. It was control, holding it together, being the steady one, the reliable one, the one who doesn't break. I was fortunate. I had my dad in my life growing up, and my dad was fantastic. Unfortunately, he died when I was 22, as I mentioned in this podcast before. But he taught me a lot in those 22 years. And one was everything that I just said about don't cry, don't show weakness, don't ask for help, don't talk about what's going on inside, all those kind of things, getting on with it, man up, stiff upper lip. I wish I could tear up those phrases, man up, and I really wish I could tear a man up, but it's a horrible, toxic phrase. My dad taught me that all of those were complete rubbish. My dad was in the forces. He had been through the Falklands. He had been at Lockerbie in the wake of that atrocity. He had been in the First Gulf War. He was a masculine man, but he was also a sensitive man. He was an open man, and he was a kind man. He was grounded. He would stand by his beliefs, but what he taught us most, even as children, I think I mentioned this in episode 1, but on Sundays, of course my dad went through what he went through, going through those situations with the Falklands and Lockerbie and Gulf War 1, First Gulf War. Of course he saw things that no one should ever have to see, and of course that affected him. But he went and got himself sorted. He did what he had to do to look after himself, because if you don't look after yourself, you cannot look after everyone. And looking after yourself isn't being quiet. It's not trying to control. It's not just holding it together. That's not how it works. But my dad, after that, and I don't remember much before then, to be fair, because I was only 2 or 3 when he was in the Gulf. But what I do remember as a kid is growing up, and every Sunday, without fail, after we'd had dinner, Sunday lunch, whatever you want to call it, he would make us sit down. And we'd all stay at the table, and we'd talk about whatever was bothering us that day, or that week. We would get it all out in the open. We would discuss anything we wanted to discuss. Dad would, and Mum, would offer advice if they saw fit, guide us, try and help us. And although me and my sister were children, and we were very much like, can we go play now? What it led was to a very healthy atmosphere growing up. An atmosphere where both me and my sister would talk very openly with our parents. And that open communication, I think, is vital. And Dad was very keen on instilling this in us both. So I was lucky that I grew up with a father who was present, who was grounded, who was open. No matter what I had done wrong, and growing up, you do things wrong. It's called being human. But no matter what I'd done wrong, if I went to him for advice on how to fix it, how to put things right, he would tell me. He wouldn't necessarily do it for me if I'd, as a kid screwed up dramatically, which we all do from time to time, part of growing up. And he'd certainly tell me what he thought about my behaviour if I'd been ill-behaved. But he would also show me a path to right it. And as if I took his actions on board and started doing those things to correct whatever I'd done wrong, that was enough. And it was great to have that communication about what was going on at school. As you know, I think I mentioned, if you've listened to all the episodes, you'll know I was horrendously bullied as a child for having epilepsy. And that shaped me quite a lot. And I didn't realise how much until recent years when I've gone back through therapy and stuff. But silence isn't strength. All you do with silence is swallow it down. It's suppression. And suppression, you can only swallow so much. Eventually, it becomes noise. It builds up in you. It could build up in your chest, in your jaw, in your breath, in your sleep. That anger can just build. You can snap in the way you react to things that really shouldn't bother you, but somehow you do. Because, frankly, I put a post up about this earlier this week. You might have seen it. I put a picture of a punch bag from the gym stating that the real fight isn't outside of you. It's showing up as you really are. The real fights are working on yourself and bettering yourself, or trying to. As human beings, we all want to do that. When you're suppressing stuff, when you're swallowing it down, when you're keeping silent, for anyone, that is not a healthy thing. It's not a healthy thing at all. Because it's got to go somewhere. And so, and I'm just as guilty of this as much as anyone, anger became very much my base level emotion. Because, with the example for the bullying, I took so much on in terms of I didn't retaliate with the physical bullying for a long time. I didn't. It wasn't in my nature to. And I took so much of getting beat up every day. And one day I lost my temper. And I punched one of them back as hard as I could. I happened to have punched the gobby one, the one you always get in a gang of bullies, shouting, "Get him." I punched him in the face as hard as I could. Now, I really can't tell you how hard that landed, how much it affected him. I wouldn't have wanted to. That wasn't the point. It was a retaliation. But because I'd done that and then the bullying stopped, it became my protection as a child. You know, after that, if anyone said anything, taking the mick, bang. And I'm not proud of that. But all I wanted to do was stop the bit in the middle. Because I hadn't really dealt with anything else. I'd suppressed it. Now, following on from this, I started martial arts training with Nick Pammon, who I've mentioned before, who's an amazing instructor. And with my martial arts training, of course, I learnt control, I learnt respect of others, respect of myself, and that anything that I was doing in the dojo stayed in the dojo. That we trained for a fight we never wished to have. And that's how my training has always been. Training for something I wish I never have to do. And everyone will have an outlet, and we all need those outlets as a pressure release valve. That was always mine, was training from that day. And it's not an unhealthy thing to go and train and to vent it in a positive way. You know, mine was sparring and hitting pads and learning katas. And later on in life, when I went back to training with Nick, it was again sparring and pad smashing and groundwork and heavy training with the gym to boost up my levels when it came to martial arts. And you need to find a way to get rid of that suppression, because it comes out somewhere. If I hadn't have done that, I probably would have ended up in more fights at school. I probably would have ended up being an angry kid. Because I was fortunate that verbally, in my own home, I knew I was allowed to talk. And I could say anything. And I wouldn't be judged. Some people don't have that environment. I was lucky. We live in a society that will tell you, and not just men, but it's the phrase, man up. But it never teaches you what that actually means in a way that actually feels real, human. It's such a throw-off phrase, oh man up. And it's one of the most toxic phrases I think to exist. As I got older, my dad passed away. That steady voice of telling me, men cry, men talk, men listen, men encourage, men lift others up, men are here for those they love. Men can talk about their emotions. They can talk about how they're feeling. They can ask for help. That voice, at least from the perspective of my hero, the man I looked up to, the man I idolized, the man I wanted to be like, went away. And there was a lot of outside noise from a number of different avenues. And I did shut up. I revered everything he taught me. Not everything. I still didn't go down the route of being disrespectful, of being misogynistic or saying things that were just unkind. I didn't do that. But what I did do was swallow a lot down. And as I said to you before, I distracted myself of all these things. Festivals, like obviously building my own festival, Just Push Play. Doing my radio show, working at other events. Keeping busy. And even though those things weren't toxic behaviours, there was a toxicity to it, in terms of the fact that it wasn't the right thing that I should have been doing. Because what I should have been doing was talking about how I felt, processing the grief from losing my dad, and moving forward as best I can. I silenced it up. I swallowed a lot of it down. I had people I could have spoken to, and I knew I could speak to them. But sometimes you have a language with a certain person in your life where it feels they just get you 100%. And sometimes that person is your confident growing up. So when they go, and this is how I saw it, and again, I can only talk from my own perspective here. I didn't want to talk to anybody else because I couldn't talk to my dad. Now I know that seems strange, but that was my theory. As we know from the previous episode, I did a lot. I ended up having a bit of a breakdown a couple of years ago. I've been through CBT, therapy, counselling, and then I've kept up with my own work, grounding techniques that really helped me. And grounding really did change all of this for me. Breathwork changed it, stillness changed it, honesty more than anything changed it. Not because they made me softer, because they made me real. They made me present. They made me exist. They made me there. Not in a vision of who I thought I should be. Not from any expectations of outside people of what I should be doing right now in my life. But all these things, they made me honest, and they made me strong. Now, us men, we're told to be strong, but we're very rarely actually told about what strength actually means. As I said earlier, we're told, don't cry, don't talk about it, don't show emotion, don't be weak, don't be vulnerable. But real strength isn't the absence of emotion. It's the ability to feel emotion without being controlled by it. Now, I'm not going to keep talking about the manoverse thing, because this is supposed to be an alternative to that. Another way. But I will say this. They are showing up telling young men, and men in general, that this is how a man should be, and this is what strength looks like. And they're very loud, they're very obnoxious, talk over others, silence others' words, get downtrodden, are misogynistic, are terrible to their partners, and just generally are very loud, and they talk over people. And I will say this: if a man is being loud and talking over others, being dismissive of what someone else might feel by a consequence of their actions, does that sound like strength? Or does that sound like a man who hasn't dealt with a lot of stuff going on? Do you think if you're truly strong that you need to prove your worth? I don't think you do. If you're strong, you know your worth. You know where you stand. You don't have to prove anything. All they are trying to do is put out a narrative that they're alpha. Well, guess what? By definition, alpha, there's only one of them. And with 6 million people on the planet, do you really think they're one of them? I don't. I don't think they're strong. I think, as I said earlier, those who talk loudest have very little to say. They know what they're saying is rubbish. They know it adds nothing to society. It doesn't boost anyone up. It doesn't make any positive changes. It doesn't enlighten anyone. So they speak it loudest. Because if I talk louder than you, then you'll have to listen. And that's just a theory on my part from when it comes to those guys. As I say, real strength isn't the absence of emotion. It's the ability to feel emotion and not be scared of it. Real strength is staying open and being honest when every part of you wants to shut down and hide and run. Because we all have that feeling. I have it all the time. It's telling the truth in uncomfortable situations. None of us like letting anyone down. But on every action you take in this life, you will, by nature, upset someone. That's just a question of a demographic. If what you're doing and the action you take is about to impact a certain number of people, some people will be upset. Some won't. Some will be with you. And that will either be on an understanding level, or they'll be behind you and picking you up. They'll be driving forward with you. But some people might be upset. They might not get it. They might not understand. Whatever that decision is that you have to make. But the thing is, with any decision we have to make in life, someone's going to be upset. So why would you make that person who's upset you, like you be the person that's upset? We have to do what's right by ourselves in life. And that doesn't mean being disconnected or dismissive of anyone's emotions. Of course we take that all on board. Nobody wants to hurt anyone. But you have to tell your truth and where you're coming from. And that doesn't mean you have to be unkind. Telling your truth isn't being unkind. It's just giving your angle. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable because we know people are going to be upset. Sometimes you're just being going to be uncomfortable because we're scared of people's responses. We're scared of what people might think. Or if I say I do this, they might think I'm weird. Or if they say if I tell them this is how I feel, they might think I'm weak. or I might give a chink away in my armour, all those kind of things, and it's rubbish. Strength is also admitting you're struggling without feeling ashamed. We all struggle. We all have things that go through our heads. Never be ashamed of struggling, because all struggling is you trying to get to the next level. And sometimes we need a little help, and there's nothing wrong with that. We are stronger, united, so much more than we are divided. It's choosing presence over performance. Be honest about where you are in that moment. Don't try and be someone you're not. Strength is choosing honesty over armour. Oh, I can't tell that person this because then they'll think this of me. Whereas you actually say to your friend, and your friend goes, "You alright, man?" And rather than just going, "Oh yeah, I'm good." And you go, "Yeah, I'm alright." "No, I'm not right." True friends will be there. Simple as that. So strength is not the hardening, it's staying present. And the pressure to be strong becomes dangerous when it disconnects you from yourself and from the rest of us as human beings. Because if we can't feel, then we can't connect. And those who can't connect suffer in silence. Now I wanted to talk about vulnerability, because I think that vulnerability has been misunderstood for a long time. It's been labelled as a weakness, as being soft, and as something we should avoid. But to me, vulnerability isn't falling apart. It's not oversharing. It's not losing control. It's truth. It's being present. It's the courage to be seen. It's saying, "I'm overwhelmed. I'm scared. I don't know what to do next. I don't know the next step. I need the support. I'm not okay today." It's being open. And there's strength in vulnerability. Vulnerability, it doesn't make you less masculine. It makes you more human. And when you're more human, you're more connected. You're more grounded, you're more real, you're more trustworthy, you're more present. The strongest men I know are the ones who will say to me, "Man, I'm struggling today." And they still show up. They're the ones who say to me, "How you doing, man?" No, seriously, how you doing? They're the ones that listen. They're the ones who aren't afraid to say, "Yeah, this is getting to me at the minute," or "This is going on and this is the situation." That is where strength lies for me. There is strength in vulnerability. Do not underestimate vulnerability. It is not a weakness. It's not a weakness. For me, grounding was a way to support my emotional honesty. Now with breath work, you slow down, you feel your feet on the ground, you reconnect with your body, you create space, and in that space you find clarity. You give yourself that time to see things with a step back approach. Grounding doesn't make you emotional. This isn't me saying, well, if you do some meditation and you do some crystal work or breath work or chakra work, that you're suddenly going to be zen for the rest of your life. That's not true. I wish it was, but that's not the reality of living. But what grounding does do, it can make you steady, it can make you present, and it can make you just return to self, find that inner anchor again. And being present It's the foundation of real masculinity. Being true to yourself is masculinity. Being honest about how you're feeling is masculinity. Being open to others is masculinity. Being conscious of others' feelings is masculinity. Talking openly is masculinity. Being true, honest, present, open, and utilising those who want to help you, and not being so egotistical that you let your ego get in the way of that help and that support is masculinity. Being united is masculinity, not division. And with that, I wanted to take a breath and go through a little bit of breath work. This is a meditation that I call softening the armor. I'll take a breath in, feel your body, notice that tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your chest, your stomach, your soul. And let it go. Breathe out and let it fall away. That tension is everything you swallowed down. You need to let it go. So picture whatever it is, and as your chest rises with this breath, and you exhale, exhale away that stress. Exhale away that pressure. Now you've built it to protect yourself. You built it because you felt like you had to. But right now, here, in this moment, you don't need an armor. You're safe. Deep breath in. Hold it. And exhale. Feel yourself loosen and sink into wherever you are. And remember this. You're still strong. You're just more open. And openness is strength. Inhale. Hold your breath. And exhale again. Let your chest soften. Let your jaw relax. And let that breath deepen. Feel your chest rise and fall as your breath rises and falls naturally. Feel the weight of your body. Feel the ground beneath you. Notice how strength doesn't disappear when you soften. Your strength is within you, not in outside noise. Take another breath in. Let go of that stress and exhale. Feel your shoulders drop. Let your breathing move more freely. You don't have to do anything right now. You don't have to perform. You don't have to fake strength. You can live it. You are it. Take one final breath in. And exhale. Feel that calm. That's your anchor, guys. Now I hope this helps. A few of you have messaged me asking if I will do some breath work and meditation style audio bits, and I will do that in the coming weeks. Thank you for asking. Thank you for being with me. I hope this finds those who needed it. Remember, masculinity is the problem. Disconnection is. We all have masculinity in us in the same way we all have femininity in us, no matter what our gender. When we reconnect with our bodies, with our breath, with our truth, we all become the kind of men the world actually needs. This is my anchor. Thank you for joining me. Next week we talk about brotherhood and why men need men. How we can support each other in the right way with grounded masculinity and encourage positive conversations that we all need. Have a fantastic rest of your week, guys, and I thank you all for joining me. Take care.